Every FromSoft game has a lot of hidden lore that has to be really sifted through in order to hit the bottom of the barrel and really understand what each game is about. However, I would say Bloodborne is one of its master classes in this type of thing. Bloodborne has so much lore that there is debates as to whether certain things that are stated in descriptions of items are even accurate to the canon because there's so many different interpretations of these base descriptions. And on top of that, there are a lot of characters, fights, etc. that we never really learn more about. One of the things we know very little about is Oedon, as well as, or it's Oedon, I don't know exactly how to say it, as well as things like Murgo and the Moon Presence. On top of that, what are the blood echoes, and why the hell do we keep giving them to the doll, and how is she able to turn this all into strength? Well, these are some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So let's go ahead and first start off with Oedon. I will be referring to him as Oedon throughout this entire thing. I know people like Redgrave referred to him as Oedon, but I'm not going to do that. Oedon is a formless Great One. This means he is a Great One that only exists in consciousness or, according to the lore, his voice. This is in contrast with pretty much every other form of Great One that we see, from Ebrietas to Rom, who is technically kind of like a demi-Great One. Usually, every version of a Great One that we see has a physical manifestation. However, Oedon is considered formless, and as far as we know it, this means that he is in another dimension or in another plane of existence. Now, we don't really know why Oedon is formless, and we don't know how he ascended or if it was intentional at all. However, I don't think it was, as we constantly see that Oedon would kind of attempt to make a surrogate through a child via things like Annalise of the Vile Bloods, or Ariana, or Queen Yarnum of the Thumerians. And according to certain lore bits, we know that they create these children again as surrogates for themselves. We have no idea why they want these surrogates, whether it be so they can kind of affect the world in various ways that they want and try to gain praise from certain groups of people. For example, Kaz was worshipped by the people in the fishing hamlet. Oedon had his own group of followers who went mad after they lost favor with him. And it's just generally seen that Great Ones do receive praise from various groups, and on top of that, they are thought to be sympathetic, meaning that they will come down and assist various groups or kind of just commune with who they are called by. And Oedon still probably wants to be able to affect the world and have his followers in his various ways so he can continue to gain strength. However, he's only able to kind of be seen in the reflections of blood echoes, or even sometimes with the blood dregs, which you give, say, Queen Annalise, so that way she can have a child. These blood echoes can be considered strength, which is also why you can use them in order to heal, and why blood was so sought after in Yarnum. Alright, so quick midway recap. So I believe Oedon is a formless Great One who did not want to lose his physical manifestation, however did, and therefore was trying to create a surrogate via the echoes of his blood. So, who is Murgo? Well, we know Murgo is in the nightmare of Mensis and is constantly crying throughout and is protected by her wet nurse. This wet nurse is then slain, and shortly after, Murgo dies, kind of implying that the wet nurse was keeping Murgo alive. Before entering the battleground with the wet nurse, we do see Queen Yarnum, and she looks as if she has had her baby dragged out of her, as she is a bloody fucking mess. After fighting the wet nurse and after allowing Murgo to finally die, however, the mother of Murgo, Queen Yarnum, seems pretty happy that we were able to defeat and finally allow the baby to die. Now, this would be strange considering Yarnum wanted to help Oedon and that this is, of course, her child. Why would she want the child to die? My theory is that Murgo was stolen from Queen Yarnum before birth. Now, this can kind of be backed up again by the idea that she is a bloody pulp, and also we don't really know who Murgo's wet nurse is. It's possible that she is another great one, as that is what is said in certain item descriptions, and generally speaking, it's possible that Murgo's wet nurse found out about this child great one and went and kidnapped it as it wanted one for itself and was never able to have a surrogate, as it is said that all great ones' children die. Also, a wet nurse is typically somebody who either just had a child or potentially lost their child and then therefore is lactating and can provide, nutrition to a young baby. This lends a little bit more credence to the idea that this wet nurse maybe is a great one who lost her child and then went ahead and, out of revenge or wanting her own child, stole the baby from Queen Yarnum. There is another possible answer, however, and this kind of goes back to the Oedon situation. I think, again, that Oedon was attempting to create surrogates in order to re-inhabit various planes of existence, so that way he can live on multiple planes of existence and affect all of them at once. This could be very bad for the other great ones, as if Oedon was also at a higher plane of existence while also being able to affect lower planes of existence, this would make him the ultimate great one. And I do believe that Oedon seeks power, and so because of this, it's possible that one of the other great ones, aka Murgo's wet nurse, saw what Oedon was trying to do and then went in and kidnapped the baby and took it into the nightmare in order to try to stop him. This then led to the baby existing in this limbo state in a plane of existence that was ultimate hell, which would make sense as to why Queen Yarnum would no longer want the baby to have to suffer through this and would essentially thank you after killing the child. Furthermore, I think because Murgo, of course, was stillborn and doesn't exist on the main lower planes of existence, Oedon wouldn't really care for this child. He would want a child that does exist on the planes of existence that he cannot exist on himself. And therefore, this is possibly why Oedon does not seek after the child himself or go try to stop this plane of existence. Now, I will say there are some theories that say Oedon is actually the wet nurse for Murgo and that he is keeping her alive and protecting her. However, again, I don't see why this would be the case because the Great Ones do want a surrogate, and I don't see what the utility of having a surrogate in a dimension of just madmen how that would be very effective for Oedon. It seems more realistic that he would go try to impregnate Annalise or go try to impregnate Ariana in order to have a new child on the plane of existence that he wants. Now, I also quickly want to mention the title of Bloodborne really quickly before we get over to the moon presence. Bloodborne, of course, kind of refers to bloodborne illnesses that are similar to things like AIDS and whatnot, and are what causes the beast scourge affliction on Yarnum. Essentially, through blood administration, they go ahead and get these diseases that are attributed to them because the Great Ones really are not supposed to be providing blood or insight to lower beings. However, we do see that we use blood as healing powers, and it seems to be fine for our player character. Now, this could be a sign of our strength as a character, and it could be a sign of the idea that maybe we are descendants of the dream. And I'm going to go ahead and get back to that in a second, but I want to go ahead and touch on the moon presence. So, the moon presence is something that created the Hunter's Dream and has trapped German, I don't know how the fuck to say his name anymore. However, he trapped him in this dream and is an anchor for the moon presence. The moon presence also created the doll, which is supposed to give German some sort of companionship after he lost his love Maria. However, we at certain times see that the doll has certain things such as pale blood, and on top of that has certain abilities such as being able to turn blood echoes, into actual strength. Now, I think that the doll has this capability because it is a descendant of the moon presence. Now, you may ask, how could it be like a descendant, and if so, why wouldn't that just be its surrogate? I believe that the moon presence, again, only has real control over this realm and wants to regain control of the main realm that we go to. On top of that, I think that the doll also is kind of this piece or tool for the moon presence in order to gain echoes from the player character. See, I've always found it interesting that the moon presence seems like almost an unfinished being, a collection of nerve endings and vertebrae that never really actually lead anywhere, and actually seems somewhat kind of weak in comparison to some of the other great ones that we've seen. The blood echoes, as we mentioned earlier, are strength, which is literally what the doll kind of mentions. The doll is able to return that strength to you after receiving the blood echoes, only to then be regathered at the end by German once you're killed by German, or once you kill German yourself, you are then picked up by the moon presence to be drained of all of your strength into the moon presence itself. Or if you prove yourself strong enough, you are then reborn into a great one that is seemingly probably going to be stronger and more efficient than the moon presence itself, and more likely or more able to kind of put a surrogate into the dimension that it wanted. So, what does all this mean and what am I getting at? I think that the moon presence is Oedon. Oedon at some point lost his actual form and then proceeded to be in a higher plane of existence. However, he no longer had the control over the different, levels of existence that he wanted. So, when he was called upon by German, who was very desperate and needed help in order to get rid of the scourge, he saw this as a prime opportunity to anchor himself to German in a way that gives him some sort of ability to control the main scourge, as well as to then try to impregnate various different members of the society in order to have a surrogate to attach itself to, so therefore it could create or control all levels of existence. The moon presence is merely the manifestation of form that Oedon has been able to receive thus far via the blood echoes that you bring it. The blood echoes are drawn from the various blood of the great ones and gathering all of this strength and blood together and then giving it over to the moon presence allows the moon presence to grow stronger and stronger, and potentially even attain the power of all of the great ones combined. The moon presence is simply in search of this same goal, as he and Oedon are one and the same, and therefore uses the hunters as well as the scourge as a means to gather strength via the blood of the other great ones and the blood echoes that you receive throughout the game. Now, also, I just quickly wanted to touch on the idea I mentioned earlier that the hunter is actually a descendant of the dream itself, or the moon presence, or Oedon. It is typically said that Oedon favors people and that when they take his blood, they hear like remnants of him or echoes of his blood. Some or most people are driven mad by this, and it's not exactly clear if they are just driven mad automatically or if they are driven mad after losing favor with Oedon. So either one, Oedon sees us as his tool and therefore favors us and allows us to go through and collect blood echoes in order to get that strength back to him in order to re-inhabit his physical form. Or it's possible that we are actually a descendant of the Oedon or the moon presence, but we are only our human half. Now, which human half that may be, we don't fully understand, but generally speaking, once we gain enough strength and insight, we then are able to turn into a full-fledged great one, which we see after we kill the moon presence and after we eat the umbilical cords. Now, if we were descendants of Oedon, it also kind of makes sense that we can take his blood and not go insane, and on top of that, it kind of adds to why we are able to choose our own actual physical manifestation in the Create a Character menu. We essentially are beckoned as reflections of Oedon in physical form in lower tiers of himself that can use his blood to then go gather the power and strength of the other great ones and beasts in order to return it to his master and one day regain his physical form in all realms. This is my current working theory for who is Oedon, how is he playing into this entire thing, and what the moon presence is and actually wants. It actually, for once, kind of seals what the moon presence goal might be, and overall, I think that is one of the things that has racked my brain the most over this entire time of thinking about this lore. But what do you guys think? Do you think that this theory is good or bad? Let me know in the comments down below. Besides that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. That'll pop up during the outro. The rest of our links are down in the description. We have gaming sessions for gaming content, movie and smoking sessions for movie content, CrazyRocky for variety content, and the Tribe Podcast as our podcast channel. All right, guys, I'll see you all in the next one.
I stay out of my head to the depths of the universe. It's a spell or a chance just to open up a new